Hello, and welcome to Monumental, where we sit down with entrepreneurs, leaders, visionaries, and big thinkers making monumental change. Here's your host, Evan Holiday.
Welcome to Monumental. I'm your host, Evan Holiday, and today we have on the show with us a good friend of mine, Ravi Gupta. Ravi, how you doing, man?
Good, Evan. What's going on?
Just loving life and loving the fact that we are finally having you on the show today.
Yes, I know. It's been a long time coming.
Yes.
Months in the waiting.
So a little bit about Ravi before we get started. So he is a doctor, Dr. Ravi Gupta. He is a co-founder and managing member of Viking Capital, and they have over 300 million in assets under management, with the current acquisition now in the works in Washington, D.C. as well. His passion lies within wellness, charitable giving, and socially responsible living. And he is focused on functional medicine as well as wellness and vitality. And he also plans on, we're going to dive into this a little bit in the podcast, but making Viking Capital a B Corporation, joining the 1% for the planet. And he's the host of a fantastic podcast. It's called Doctors, Real Estate, and Money. And we also, little background, we are also members of the same mastermind himself, and it was a Viking Capital mastermind, and a phenomenal group of guys that Ravi and Vikram and Trevor were able to put together. And so with that, let's just dive right into a little bit of your background, Ravi, and who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on, Evan. I'm really pleased and honored to be on your podcast. Top 400, or is it 200?
200, yep.
Top 200, okay. Amazing. So a little bit about myself. Sort of born and brought up in Virginia, and I went to school around here in Northern Virginia, and trained as a physician. And I've been, as Evan mentioned, and I was working as a physician for about 15, 20 years in inpatient. I got to the point in my career where I enjoyed what I was doing to a certain extent, but then on another level, I felt that there was something missing, and there's something more that I can contribute to life, and to pursue my passions a little bit more. So that got me started on a different path, and I wasn't sure where the path would take me, and focusing on the real estate part of it. I started investing in these smaller multifamily assets in Washington, D.C. My wife and I were doing it mainly as a place to live initially, but we realized it was a good financial investment. So we purchased one triplex unit. We lived in one unit and rented the other two. And in fact, we were actually getting paid to live there in a good part of DC. Yeah, it was great. We then expanded to another one. We moved into another unit in Shaw and did the same thing, lived in one, rented the other two. And we grew from there. We bought another two. And then we got to the point where we were both we pulled back from clinical medicine. So she's also a physician. We both went to I was about 50% clinical. She was about 70, 80%. And we were happy in some ways with where we were. We're just like, okay, this is, we could persist like this for a while, but that nagging desire, that desire to grow and contribute was still there for me. And that's where I met my good friend and co-partner in Viking Capital. And he brought up the idea of taking this company to another level and starting a multifamily syndication company. So that was intriguing. And it was like, first I was like, you're insane, man. Like, buying a 100 unit complex.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds nuts. Like I can barely manage 11 units, here. But then, after learning the ropes and sort of just jumping into it head first, we took it to a bigger level and to the point where we've got, multi-million assets under management. We've got a team behind us, and it is giving me this huge opportunity to grow and to create and to really design my life the way I want to live it.
That's amazing. And so what for you and your wife, what made you think about real estate in the first place?
Well, I grew up in a family where my father was very much interested and invested into real estate. We grew up in New Jersey, and he bought an investment property there. And then our vacations would be going to this house and like, painting it and,
Yeah.
cleaning it up and all this stuff after the renters left. And so, kind of left a bad taste in my mouth when I was like a kid. I was like, well, what a horrible way to spend a vacation. But then as I got older, seeing how much benefit he got out of it, he's got like 7 or 8 townhomes, and how he's basically framed his retirement off these purchases and these assets. So, I was like, wow, this is a great investment. So that's sort of how I got started into it. And my wife, she really just sort of came onto it with me and learned a lot and helped a lot along the way.
That's awesome. And so you've done, what they now call the house hacking. Probably wasn't even called that back then, but so you and your wife were house hacking while you were also both full-time doctors. Is that right?
Correct. That's right.
And then so walk us through that transition of you partnering with Vic and creating Viking Capital, and how that partnership came about and what you all saw in each other that made you want to form that partnership.
Absolutely. So it's just to start off, like I was full-time, as you mentioned, working as a full-time physician, as was my wife when we started this house hacking project. And it was a ton of work. I mean, like I remember sleeping in this dirty, renovated home and then coming to work and, like working a full day, then going back. It was pretty difficult at the time, but once we were able to pull back a little bit, we had the free time to spend, in other passions and interests. That's when Vikram approached me and he was like, hey, look, let's take this to the next level, because he had an interest in real estate. He had some of his own personal property. So we started building this company, and, as I mentioned, really not knowing a whole lot about this multifamily space, we just dove into education and learning. And that was something to really stress to your listeners, is that if you can find somebody that's doing the same thing you're doing, and there's a way you can get them as a coach, or invest in an educational seminar or something like that, be part of a group, it's an awesome investment, because basically you've got someone that's guiding you to get to where you want to be. And that's what we did. We invested into an educational company, RE Mentor. We've made some contacts in that group, and we actually initially helped them with a raise on one of their properties. So we were quote unquote co-managers on this. It was an awesome start, because basically we were paid to, work. We brought people in. We were part of the team. We got a portion of the GP, and we just went from that one. We went on to another and another. So we did 3 with them, to the point where we were able to do our own deals. We learned enough to do our own, and then we started doing our own deals after that, and then just grew from there.
So, and I love that you bring that up, is, finding coaches, finding mentors, finding those that have been where you want to go, are in the path of your progress, and can basically kind of like pull you up. They're already there, and they can kind of pull you up along the way, and you can both benefit from that. And I think that's so important, to be investing in yourself, because, we know this because we have taken that investment, but it's literally like the best investment you could possibly make, because it's something that nobody can take away from you, and it will literally stay with you. The personal growth that's going to happen in your mind and your mindset and your confidence and your abilities and your belief in yourself, nobody can take that away from you.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, a good analogy is, imagine a boat. You're sailing a boat from one point to another, and say your destination is this island. If you've got no goals and no direction in life, for example, you're looking at this analogy, you're on this boat, you're really going to sail kind of haphazardly. Maybe you'll make it to the island. Maybe you'll just kind of veer off and come back to where you started. If you have a goal in mind, you can get to that destination. But if you have like a captain that's been there before, that knows how to sail, stormy waters and rough seas and that type of thing, can guide you to that, it'll just make it so much easier. So that's like that. I feel like that's like the perfect analogy. You need somebody to really guide you to get to that point, to get there quicker and the most efficient way.
Yeah, I love it. And so you guys worked with a group, helping them on a deal, helping basically play the role of the capital raising part and playing other parts of the GP role. As far as your transition from helping somebody else and partnering with somebody else to then doing your own deal, what was that like?
So I feel like it was a natural progression at that point. We always knew that we wanted to become the sponsors on a deal.
Yeah.
Our goal wasn't to be co-GPs on deals in perpetuity. So we really knew that this was the transition that we wanted to make, and we were building that up slowly. So we were making developing these broker relationships, touring deals on our own. The first deal that we finally got was a C-class deal in South Atlanta. And it's kind of a funny story. We were the second place on this particular deal. And being second place is actually not a bad thing, because a lot of times, number one, and I would say about 20% of the time, the number one is going to back out because they've got offers on multiple deals. Maybe they bid too high in this particular one and realize that they did, and they're going to, they back out for that reason. But the reason the number one backed out of this particular one was because there was a fractured condo complex next door, and there were prostitutes, there's shootings, it was just a very dirty kind of situation. And there was the murder that happened right outside this property. And the number one guy was like, I'm out, and you give it to somebody else. And we were, we raised our hands. We're like, hey, we'll take it.
We'll take it.
We don't mind the prostitutes and the drug deals. We'll deal with it. So, those are the first deals sometimes you got to do. It's tough deals. That's how we got started. We got that one and then grew from there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's another good point is, sometimes you take what you can get. If there's opportunity, it may not be the sexiest looking opportunity, but it gets you the experience and it gets you momentum and it builds your track record so that you can work your way up to doing, the ideal type of deal that you want to be doing, or the ideal type of work, or the ideal type of impact.
Absolutely. And that was our experience. We weren't looking to get into, C properties and C areas as our ultimate move. This was just a stepping stone, and, we got it done. We actually bought that fractured condo complex next
across
door
the street
together. Yeah.
Nice.
And then, did pretty well there. And then kept on moving forward as you mentioned.
So fast forward to today, 300 million assets under management. You're buying a beautiful community in Washington, D.C. now. What got you to that point? And then what is that, looking back, what does that feel like for you as far as what you all have been able to accomplish?
Yeah. So for what really got me to that point was mindset. It was opening up the idea and possibility that this could happen.
Yeah.
It sounds like, a basic thing, but it's super important. And it kind of goes along with your identity, right? The kind of the standard teaching is like the greatest driver in someone is really their being consistent with their identity. And you're expanding your identity. And that was how we got there. So as I mentioned before, I couldn't even see owning a 100-unit complex. But then when I got to the point where we owned it, I was like, oh, this is not so bad. In fact, and in some ways it was easier than the 11. Yeah, it's a kind of a crazy thing, but you've got property managers on site that are dealing with all the day-to-day issues, and you're managing the asset. So it was like, I was like, okay, well, start off, it was like a $4 million deal. I'm like, okay, this, we can do this. Then the number increased to, 12 million, then 15 million. And then it just, and that those numbers initially for me were like, wow, how can I, tackle this big of a deal? But once you expand those possibilities, you expand your identity, you can do all this mind work, this mindset work, you can get to those points. And that was what it was for me. It was just understanding that I could do it. And then once we start growing, people, heard about us. We get on shows like this one, and people listen to it and like, oh, okay, this may be some people that we want to contact or maybe get involved in one of their projects. We just grew and expanded and went from there.
That's amazing. And as far as like any advice you would have for somebody that's, building their own multifamily company or really, at the point where they're having people, or they're looking for partners or investors and trying to seek that buy-in, because ultimately they need partners to get these deals done, especially on the capital side. What kind of advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I think starting off, I think the way we started off in partnering with someone as like a co-GP or a co-manager is the way to go, because you learn on the job. In essence, you're getting paid to, in fact, bring money into a deal, and then you're learning.
Yeah.
So my piece of advice is, find somebody that's willing to offer that partnership. Like, we've had that opportunity, and we're giving that opportunity to folks. So
Yeah.
you find somebody that's willing to do that. That's number one. And then number two is really understanding and just being convinced of the fact that you have the ability to start a business and to offer people these types of opportunities. And it's a benefit you're offering them. You're not like begging for money from somebody.
Yeah.
'Cause that was a big mindset switch for me. When I started off, I was like, man, I'm a salesman. I'm sort of like, pitching this as a sale. And what I realized soon, soon afterwards, was that this is not like a sale. It's really, I'm offering them an opportunity. And when you switch, you have that mindset switch, it makes a huge difference in how you interact with people and how you sort of grow, you grow your business.
Yeah. And I think, listening back, it definitely sounds like, a lot of what you're saying is like, it's a mindset shift as far as, how you treat it as an opportunity with your investors. It's also a mindset shift of how you see your growth. A lot of what you're saying, it sounds like it comes back to like, how do you perceive things? How do you tackle things first off within your head, between your two ears, right? Like that's where a lot of our growth happens, is really just in your mindset, because that allows you to then take the action that you need to take to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I'd say that's like 90% of it, is really understanding that you can do it. And then once you understand you can do it, the resources are there. I mean, it's like the resources we have are unlimited. You just really got to just look for it, take that opportunity, just be driven to look for those opportunities and resources yourself to grow and expand. To listen to the Monumental podcast. I mean, they're right there. There's like unlimited resources right here, Evan, that you're offering people.
Free resources.
Yeah, right. So you start there and grow and expand in whatever way you want to.
Yeah, I love it. As far as I want to dive into, because of what we're talking about now, mindset, I think that's something we talk about a lot in our mastermind. So I want to bring up and kind of like pull back the curtain a little bit and show people like kind of, if you could give your take of like, what is the value in our mastermind and what we're getting out of our mastermind, and share that with our listeners.
Absolutely. So people that don't know what a mastermind is, it's just a group of people, and that could be 2 people at a minimum. We find that 12 would be probably the biggest size that makes sense. But it's a group of people that come together and help each other with specific targeted, issues or help people grow in a certain direction, and build upon each other so you can all, kind of collectively rise. It's the interesting part about a mastermind too, is you get to this resonant energy too. It's like you almost have once you all start working together and tackling each other's issues and collective issues, it's almost like another person is involved, because you get these ideas that come to you that normally wouldn't.
Yeah.
That resonant energy is also super important. So once you're, having a group like this, we find is incredibly important because of that particular reason. Like, there are things that, some situations that you're dealing with that you may be thinking, oh, this is the best way. Then you realize that, 3 other people are doing it differently. Or maybe there's a problem that you've been trying to tackle forever. Somebody has the answer. Or when you discuss and sort of like that vibration, that frequency, it just increases, improves. You figure it out. You're like, oh my God, I didn't even think about this. So it is, I feel like it's really important, imperative to have something like this in your life. It could, if it's just one or two people, that's totally fine. But if it's something more organized like we do, I think it really has added benefit as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And really it's like bringing like-minded people together that are, we're all pushing each other. We're holding each other accountable. You and I are on weekly calls, 15 minutes every week. And it's just setting goals and having somebody where you're going to hop on the call with them, you better get it done, or else you have to have that, tough conversation with your accountability partner. That's one part of it. It's being open and sharing too. That's where you grow. I feel like our last call, we all shared a lot personally, not just professionally, but personally. And I feel like we all grew because of it. And you get closer as a group. Like you said, that resonant energy, I think, is powerful. And I highly recommend, any form of mastermind for any of our listeners where you feel like you're surrounded by people that are going to push you to be the best version of yourself. And you can also help by pushing them too.
Yeah. And I have to say to your listeners that if Evan is your accountability partner, just you got to shape up, because he's gonna whip you down. I mean, he'll take you down. I've experienced it.
I love it. So kind of like the next iteration of your business, what does that look like for you in Viking Capital and all the different avenues that you're working on right now?
So we're, as I mentioned earlier, we're taking steps. The first step was getting that initial C class property. Now we're doing B class, and now we're doing A class properties. And eventually we want to stick with B or better properties in B or better areas, and with a value add strategy. But even further down the road, where I see us going is becoming a green company. I'm very much interested in sustainability. Viking Capital is looking to become a B corporation. We're joining certain organizations like 1% for the Planet, and that's in the works. And we're also going to, reduce our footprint and allow tenants to live in communities where they have less of an environmental impact, and it's not a lot of work for them. In fact, we've got projects underway in this particular asset that we're acquiring where it's going to save them money. They're going to actually get a check in every month based on the amount of utilities they save. We've structured it in such a way to do that. We're going to get a check every month based on the utilities we save, because we're in an area of Washington D.C. and the surrounding areas in a place where there's a lot of energy trading going on, and you can get certain deals if you decrease peak demand load. So we're doing those types of projects that makes financial sense, but it also has a huge impact on the environment.
Yeah,
positive impact.
That's really cool. Could you dive into that a little bit more? I'm curious. I'm sure some of our listeners are too. Like how you're doing that.
Absolutely. So we partnered with another group called Zome, and they're a small company. And what they do is they set up an AI device on our building. And then they also install thermostats on just standard thermostats, HVAC thermostats, and then water heater thermostats in every unit. And the great thing is it's free. There's no upfront cost to us to do this. And in fact, it saved us a ton of money because we were going to plan on installing Nest thermostats in these units anyway, so we don't have to. We save money there. So with this system that they have, when there is peak demand, the price of energy actually gets very high. As consumers of that, we don't really see it as much. We just see kind of a flat fee. But when you get to the commercial space, it actually increases your bill tremendously. And if you have a system that can drop your peak demand, and that's what this system does, it'll drop the temperature by maybe 1 or 2 degrees, turn off the water heaters just for maybe an hour or less time, so the total building demand, energy demand goes down during this peak period. It saves a lot of energy, a lot of money rather. And that money is split amongst Zome and it's split amongst Viking Capital. And then it's also given to the tenants because they can opt into, dropping their energy even further. Like say, hey, maybe 3 degrees, I'll drop it down. And the more they drop it, the more savings that we get, and then we pass it on to them.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's always like, that's one of the most exciting things that I love about multifamily and real estate in general, is that there's so many different ways you can be creative and in the way you finance things, and also the way you can give back and have impact. I mean, that sounds like a win-win, or really like a win-win-win on all sides. It's like, it's benefiting the residents, it's benefiting the owners and the investors, and it's benefiting the planet. And it's just something that, a lot of people would overlook or not even think about, is just lowering it, 1 or 2 degrees, or, lowering the energy use by just a small percentage, but it actually helps benefit everybody.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different projects like that, on top of this, in this particular asset in DC, not only are we doing that, but we're going to partner with a company called Clean Choice Energy. So our energy is going to be purchased from sustainable sources, that they create energy with wind and solar. So we got that coming, and the residents aren't really going to see much of a difference there, but they're going to get their energy that way. Another project we did the first solar lighting project in probably the Southeast area, where we had solar panels attached to batteries that delivered the parking lighting, the parking spaces. This actually it cost us about $80,000, but the decrease in operational costs based on how much we were going to pay Georgia Power anyway for that lighting actually translated to over $200,000 of savings once we sold the property. Yeah. So it's like, it's like a win-win situation. You can, kind of help the planet, and then help your finances at the same time. It's the triple bottom line: people, planet, profit. That's what we're
doing. And I love that you bring that up, because I feel like people don't think about it as much in that context. They're like, oh, well, it's going to cost me $80,000. That's going to hurt our budget, and that's going to hurt our returns. But if you take it in the grand scheme of things, of saying, hey, it's going to lower operating expenses. Our property's value is based on the net operating income. So in essence, we're increasing the value of our property just by spending a little bit up front, but in the long run, it massively pays off for itself. I love hearing stories like that, because a lot of people don't always think about that. Like we did solar panels on the roof of one of our new developments, and it was the same thing. It was lowering operating expenses. It was basically like $100 lower in utilities per unit per year. Well, if you extrapolate that out, that's like another, on a 204 unit deal, that's like $1.2 million in additional loan proceeds that we could borrow on, and just by making a $500,000 solar panel investment. So it's really, really powerful if you think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah. And it's right now it's outside the box, but I'm certain, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this is going to be more commonplace in the future, because, if as we know, being in this business, if you're able to make money off something, it just makes financial sense. You're going to do it. I mean, it's like, it's only a matter of time. Solar, wind, the LED lighting, that's a no-brainer. Water conservation, like we've done projects where we switch toilets to 0.8 gallons per flush, we got a discount on the toilets, like $100 off because of some county type incentive. And then also we get other incentives, tax incentives. So it basically evens out, and we're saving on the water bill. So there's so many of these types of situations out there. Just requires somebody to think about it and look for it.
So I want to dive into quickly your background in medicine and why that's important to you, and kind of how that overlaps with what you do with Viking Capital as well.
Yeah. So I, the reason I got into medicine in the beginning was because of this desire I have that really started at a young age to give back and to contribute to society. And I remember when I was very young and I took a trip to India, and if your listeners haven't gone to a developing country, I really think it's super important to have that kind of experience, because when I was there, it literally, that one experience really changed my entire outlook. because I didn't realize that that
Yeah.
kind of poverty and that sickness and illness was out there. And so my desire to go to medicine was really based on helping and giving back. And then when I started working as a doctor, I started realizing that a lot of what I was doing was just putting Band-Aids on people. People would come in with an acute issue in the hospital.
Yeah.
I'd put a Band-Aid on them, send them out the door, and invariably they would come back, with some other issue. So, as I started growing as a physician, I realized I started thinking there's got to be a better way to do this, and really, attack the root cause issues that these people have. And that's where functional medicine comes into play. And what functional medicine is a way to really optimize your health. Your health isn't defined as the absence of disease. Health is defined as optimizing, your health to your genetic potential. And that's what this is. And it attacks root cause issues so that, these diabetics that consistently come into the hospital, for example, because of, some vascular disease or whatever it is, you're basically getting rid of their diabetes, a condition that conventional medicine says is just perpetual and is chronic, and you're not going to get rid of it. Well, you can. There's ways you can do that. And it really ties into the Viking, because, this whole sustainability, green aspect, living, closer to nature, that's what functional medicine is about. It's just based on living closer to nature, because, like our ancestors for thousands and thousands of years, how we've developed, they've lived in these environments. And only recently in the past, couple hundred, have we just considered ourselves beings that required being indoors, being in front of a computer, or, having hot water delivered to us on demand like that. It's just not how our ancestors lived. It's not, all this processed food and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's not how our ancestors lived. But when we get closer to nature, we live like we're really we've been genetically developed to live certain ways. It's actually healthier for us. So that's the type of medicine I'm practicing. Really, that's the kind of multifamily real estate investing I want to do. It all sort of ties in together. So that answers your question. To me, it's like kind of living in that flow state based on that, or being in that flow state based on that belief.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that all kind of came about for you. At least the ball started moving when you went to a developing country and kind of saw how others were living, and saw that, it isn't all, access to anything, anytime you want, there's a lot of people that are living in really, really low poverty, that, they're living with almost nothing. And there's probably billions of people across the planet that are in that condition right now. And so I think exactly the line you're on is, it takes, an amount of service from us being, hey, we have all these tools at our disposal. We have this, powerful mind that we can use. We have the ability to really give back and impact the world, the planet, others, live a healthier life, be closer to nature, and help the planet be healthier, as well as those that are maybe a little less fortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, having the attitude of gratitude. When you're exposed to those types of, those situations in developing countries or poverty, in these areas, when you're in that state of gratitude, it sort of goes along with all of what you said. You are in this place where you can grow from. If you're in a state of contraction and being stressed and, focusing on all the things you don't have, that's what you're really not able to expand. You're contracting.
Yeah.
So that's important.
I love it. And it definitely, it resonates with, it sounds like that's a big part of your why, is giving back and having impact and helping others in everything you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Well, I feel like we could probably keep going and going, but let's jump into our monumental questions.
Sure.
What does success mean to you?
Well, success for me is really three things. It's The first thing is working in a position where you're passionate about. Being in a position and you work where you're passionate about, and it's almost not work. It's something you're just interested in. 2 is giving back to the community, whether it could be, through personal ways or contributing to some other type of charity. And 3 is having time to spend the way you want with your family, with your friends. So it's those 3 things: charity, family, and work, and optimizing those define success for me. And I love it. And time freedom.
So what about daily habits or morning rituals that you have?
So we spoke about this before, the 5 a.m. Club, Robin Sharma. It's a great book, and he really describes the perfect morning routine. And in essence, that's what I do. I wake up early in the morning, start off with an attitude of gratitude, spend some time with education. I always, at least 20 to 40 minutes, I'm trying to learn something new. Then I work out for anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, and then I meditate, and try to and just prep myself for the day. I prime myself in a positive way for the day. So that's my morning routine.
I love it. And I'm also a big fan of Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. Club. So last question, as far as favorite book or book you are currently reading.
So my favorite book, I would say, is The One Thing by Gary Keller. It really encompasses a lot of what we spoke about, and focuses on just one thing that you need to do in life that would move you to another level. And a lot of times we have so many things on our to-do list that we become inundated, and we're like, we don't know where to start. Then you just end up not doing anything, sitting on the couch and watching TV. But what he does is he filters it down in a way that you can process to just one thing that you could do to move the needle. And you do that on a daily basis, every day. Just focus on one thing, and it makes a huge impact in your life. And the way he describes it is beautiful. So I'd recommend that to all your listeners. Yeah,
that is a powerful book. I love that chair. Well, Ravi, in closing, I first want to say thank you. This was a phenomenal episode. I had a blast. I think we love talking about all the same thing, and I love sharing your story and your journey and how you got to where you are. And so how can our Monumental listeners follow you or reach out with you or connect with you?
Yeah, thanks for that, Evan. Yeah, I had an awesome time. We could go on and on, and I'm really happy to be on the show. So you can connect with me through our website, vikingcapllc.com. It's our Viking Capital website. We also have a coaching website called it's mdincome.com, mdincome.com. So that's another way. Also, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, so you can reach out to me that way as well.
I love it. Guys, take Ravi up on this. He's got tremendous value. He's just amazing person. So make sure to reach out with him, connect with him, take him up on it. And if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share it on social media. Let us know you're listening. Tag Ravi, tag Viking Capital, tag me. Let us know what part you enjoyed most. What did you get out of today's episode? And also do not forget, go to iTunes, and please, if you enjoyed today's episode, leave us a review for Monumental. Let us know you're listening. And guys, with that, have a monumental day.